A little past 8 o'clock in the East, it is prime time, if you will. Hour 2 of our special expanded edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth, and we thank you very much for staying with us. Now, earlier this evening, Donald Trump was on the stump in Cincinnati. Very interesting. We heard he was going to start at 7 p.m. 1 hour ago, but they got an early start at the Sharonville Convention Center. Newt Gingrich with Donald Trump introducing the presumptive GOP nominee, basically an audition, if you will, Newt possibly becoming Donald Trump's running mate. And on the stump earlier tonight, Donald Trump again picked up the theme of Hillary Clinton skating in terms of evading prosecution with the email scandal. Here is how Donald Trump hammered Hillary earlier tonight in Cincinnati.
We're tired of incompetent people. We're tired of incompetent leadership and incompetent people. And Hillary Clinton, I said, bad judgment, she's incompetent, okay? She's incompetent. The only good thing she's ever done is get out of trouble when anybody else would have been in jail by now. That's the only thing that I've ever seen her do. That was a great job. I got to give her credit.
All right, so that is Donald Trump tonight in Cincinnati. An earlier start than we anticipated, but now, in hour 2 of Newsmax Prime, we welcome in our panel to talk some about this, and we begin with someone who is a great friend of the program, who has had experience as an elected public official. She is the former Lieutenant Governor of New York, Betsy McCaughey, who joins us tonight from that great study that I believe is across the state line in Connecticut. Betsy, thanks very much for your time here tonight on Newsmax Prime. Also with us tonight from Palm City, Florida, former U.S. Secret Service agent and former New York PD officer Daniel Bongino. Dan, of course, running for the Congress now from the state of Florida. Dan, we thank you for taking a break from the campaign trail. Now,
sure, you got it. I'm actually in Naples tonight. Good to see you from Naples.
And I stand corrected tonight from Naples. Now, before we get to Betsy and Dan, we want to welcome in an attorney at Fisher Broyles from Newsmax, New York, Timothy Parlatore. Timothy, I apologize if I mangled your last name, sir. Please forgive me and instruct me on the way to pronounce it.
Not a problem, JD. You got it right, Parlatore.
Well, bless you, Tim. We're glad you're here. And obviously, you have had experience with the type of case we heard FBI Director James Comey discuss earlier today. Now, Rudy Giuliani, who obviously knows his way around as a U.S. attorney and a former prosecutor, appeared on MSNBC's Morning Joe earlier today. And Rudy says the case to indict Hillary was a no-brainer. Let's look and listen.
I'm surprised. I completely disagree with it. It's a case that, as a prosecutor for most of my life, and I wasn't just U.S. attorney, I was a third-ranking official in the Justice Department, made decisions like this. This, to me, is a fairly easy case. Certainly under the non-intent statute, it's a no-brainer. If you read the first 3/4 of his report, it says indict.
So, Tim, you have experience with cases like this involving the handling of classified information. Do you think there was enough of a case here, as Rudy Giuliani just stated?
Oh, unquestionably. Unquestionably. It's a statute that doesn't require criminal intent. It also can be charged under a gross negligence theory, which, certainly Director Comey laid out when he was talking about the extreme carelessness. That is the very definition of gross negligence. So these type of cases are very easy to bring and very difficult to defend.
Now, Tim, we also had a situation earlier today where former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales said, in essence, James Comey usurped the authority of the Justice Department by saying this was not going to go to the prosecutor. Do you, or not leaving it up to the Attorney General and the DOJ to make that decision? Your take on that?
I think that's accurate. The FBI's function is to investigate and to present evidence to the prosecutors. But ultimately, the decision as to whether to indict or go forward with a case rests with the prosecutor, who's actually going to have to look forward to the eventuality of putting 12 jurors into a jury box and presenting that case. And can they prove that case? So that's not really something that the FBI is looking for. The FBI's goal is simply to get to the point of probable cause to make an arrest, whereas the Justice Department, or the U.S. Attorney's Office specifically, is the ones that are looking at it. Is this something that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt?
Tim, as you may...
That's certainly something that's more... Sorry.
No, that's okay. Go ahead and finish your thoughts, sir.
I was just saying that's certainly something that's normally in the province of the U.S. Attorney, not the investigators from the FBI or any other law enforcement agency.
Now, Tim, another situation today. The DOJ closed the case against Mrs. Clinton following the FBI's recommendation that no charges be filed. Does that mean that Hillary is in the clear? Has she totally skated in this thing?
That really depends on what has happened behind closed doors. If there's no agreement between the Justice Department and Hillary Clinton, such as a decline to prosecute agreement, then theoretically the case would still potentially be open. If, for example, Trump wins and he decides to send his new Attorney General after it, unless there is some type of a pardon by Obama on the way out, or an agreement between her and the Justice Department to say that they'll never pursue charges, it would still be open. And certainly with the prospect of hearings in Congress, could the Justice Department potentially reverse themselves? Absolutely. At the same time, from the perspective of the defense, if I were representing Mrs. Clinton on this, the statements made by Director Comey and all of the events that have surrounded that would be great fodder for the defense to say to the jury, no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case. Why are they bringing it now? So they've made it difficult, but not impossible.
Timothy Parlatore, an attorney who knows whereof he speaks, tonight from Newsmax, New York. Tim, we very much appreciate your insights, your legal scholarship, and your analysis this evening on Newsmax Prime. Thanks very much.
Thank you, JD.
Well, we heard the legal angle. Now let's talk politics. You just met a few minutes ago, got reacquainted with one of our regulars here, Betsy McCaughey, and another regular, Dan Bongino. And let's bring them on to talk about both the legal decision and the political ramifications. Betsy, ladies first, your take on what we've seen in the last 48 hours. Apparently, we're having a little trouble we're going to try to work on your audio, Betsy. Let me go to Dan. Dan, let's see if we have your audio, your take on what has transpired.
Well, this was a travesty of justice, JD. There's no other way to look at it. And having worked as a federal agent for 12 years of my life and as a local police officer before that, I'm intimately familiar with the elements of crimes, the elements of an investigation, and good, solid, packaged federal cases. JD, this thing was in a bow. I mean, this was, when Jim Comey laid out yesterday that for 15 minutes what Mrs. Clinton did, in the federal system, you can put forth an information, a complaint, or an indictment. If that went in front of a judge and jury, he could have convicted Mrs. Clinton just on that information alone. I mean, there's really only two ways to look at this, right? From the political end, too. Either Mrs. Clinton could not recognize classified information and therefore passed it on a private server and is not qualified to be president, or she could recognize classified information and sent it on anyway on a private server and therefore is not qualified to be president. There's really no other way to look at this, even with your liberal friends who are immune to facts sometimes.
Well, one lady who was certainly no liberal, but she's quite enlightened, is our friend Betsy McCaughey. Betsy, the only thing that was messing with you was a knob turned down. I think we've got your audio. We want to hear from you loud and clear. Okay, go ahead.
One is that James Comey was suddenly put in a very, very disadvantageous position when Bill Clinton boarded that plane to meet Mrs. Lynch, because then Mrs. Lynch was forced to say she will go along with whatever the FBI recommends. That's how Comey got trapped into making a recommendation. You're quite right. It wasn't within his normal purview, but she put it in his lap to defend herself, right? The second issue is this. Mrs. Clinton said many times, for example, before the House Benghazi Committee, that she had never sent or received classified emails. Now we know, of course, that she perjured herself. So one of the issues that is still before Mrs. Clinton is whether she committed perjury before the House committee and possibly to the FBI and other investigators. And that's something we will have to look into.
And that is a very serious thing. Anytime you're before
Yes.
a congressional committee, if you mislead Congress, it is by definition perjury. To the phones we go, a couple of minutes remaining in this portion of our program, out to my old stomping grounds of Mesa, Arizona, to welcome Shirley. Hi, Shirley.
Hi there, JD. It's good to get on here. Your previous guest made a comment about the people out here don't care of what's going on. We do care. We're listening to every word that's being said, and these people this person needs to go to jail. The reason why that they are not going to do anything, number one, she's going to keep Lynch in her position, and the next thing is Obama is backing her all the way because he wants to get on the Supreme Court. And she's already made a statement that she's going to if she gets in, she's going to put him on the Supreme Court.
Well, we appreciate your perspective, Shirley. Let me turn to Dan Bongino. We just heard Shirley say the people do care. Dan, about 45 seconds, clear this up for me. Secret Service agents, is their primary purview protection, or as law enforcement officials, should they be reporting wrongdoing they see in the Oval Office? Has the has the Secret Service become a modern-day Praetorian Guard? About 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah, fair question. No, they haven't. They're GS 1811s first, JD, meaning they're federal investigators who happen to have a protective function. If they see a federal crime or a crime in front of them, yeah, they're certainly obligated to tell some Secret Service official and to move that through the channels. Absolutely, they're not there to hide secrets like that. No.
And yet the concern has been over the years, especially in a previous Clinton administration, that some agents, and I believe it was former Speaker Newt Gingrich who first used the term, the Secret Service has been reduced to a modern-day Praetorian Guard. Speaking of Newt, and number two possibilities for Donald Trump. That is something we will discuss with Betsy and Dan and with you too at 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629 when we come back after this.